Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro. Sometimes on Ideanthro, we bring you well-formed ideas, solid information, solid knowledge, and sometimes we explore into ideas that aren't quite coming together yet. Tidbits, things to ponder, maybe bits of research that are emerging. Stuff for you to think about, because in the future they might have potential and might affect the work that you do. Today, it's one of those episodes. It's one of those, here's something to think about episodes. Now, if you've watched our videos before, you may well have come across the fact that we are super interested in how we can mimic nature and ecological processes in our stormwater systems, particularly in bioretention systems. But that's just because they're the most used stormwater treatment system in Australia. So we tend to focus on them a lot. But how do we mimic these natural processes, ecological processes, in our bioretention systems, in our stormwater treatment systems? You might, for example, have seen episodes 106 and 111, where we went to Hoyland Street, which is the second oldest bioretention system in Australia. It was built in 2001 by Brisbane City Council. It was planted with trees and an understory, and over time, it's exhibited a lot of properties of an ecosystem. We've seen pioneer species come up in it. We have seen succession as those pioneers, or we're beginning to see succession as those pioneers have died off. So we're really interested in these natural processes. And if you haven't seen those episodes, go back and check them out, because frankly, I think they're some of our most underviewed episodes. But today, in one of those happen chance occurrences, I stumbled across a recent episode of the ABC's Gardening Australia program. So for international viewers, the ABC is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and they have a very long-standing, well-respected gardening program called Gardening Australia. And in this episode, my personal favourite gardening / environmental sciencing / mediaing person and personality, Josh Byrne. Hi Josh. Josh Byrne interviewed Professor Kingsley Dixon. Now Professor Dixon was one of the people who first discovered, I think this was in 1995, that Australian native plants require, or many Australian native plants, not all, but many Australian native plants require smoke in order to germinate. So not fire specifically, not heat specifically, but actually smoke in order to germinate. And with our interest in trying to mimic ecological processes in bioretention systems, this got us thinking, what can this mean for us? What?
In 1995, we published the paper that showed that it was smoke, not heat or ash from a bushfire, that stimulated the germination of so many Australian plants. So when we started the work, we didn't realise there was going to be 4,000 chemicals in smoke. It took a very long time, essentially like a piece of salami, to keep slicing it up and working out which slice of salami actually had the magic compound in it. We finally got down to 3, and on one Eureka day, one of those 3 compounds finally was the only one that grew our test species.
Bioretention systems come in all sorts of different sizes. But imagine you've got like a pocket bushland bioretention system. So it's beside a creek, it's in a residential area, it's maybe like 700 square meters in size, so it's a reasonable size for a bioretention system. It's right next to the riparian zone. It integrates well together. And we're going, okay, can we make this into a self-sustaining ecosystem that actually functions as an ecosystem to keep itself functioning over time with as little human intervention as possible? Because of course this is interesting from a maintenance point of view. The more money we can save by getting these systems to look after themselves, the more of these systems we can afford to have in general, and the better we can do for our waterways. So imagine you've got this pocket bioretention system, this pocket bushland bioretention system next to a riparian zone, and you want it to sustain over time. Well, one of the things it needs to do is it needs to be able to drop seed on the ground, and it needs those seeds to germinate. And that's all well and good if those seeds will do that of their own accord. But imagine if you've got species in there that, for whatever reason, they're particularly suited to the environment. Like we've come out today, this is particularly relevant. This is Toohey Forest in Brisbane. I happened to be walking through here this morning and was thinking to myself as I walked through the path, and you can clearly see where one side of the path has been burnt at a particular point in time, and the other side of the path, quite a long time ago, you can't actually see like the soot and the char anymore. One side of the path has been burnt at one period of time, another's been burnt at another period of time, and you can see the different species coming back through and filling those niches. So imagine you've got a pocket bioretention system, and for whatever reason, the species that you want to put in there, perhaps because they matched well with the surrounding bushland that you've just put it next to, Imagine if those species need fire or need smoke to germinate, which presumably is going to come from fire. Need that smoke to germinate. Well, suddenly we've got a bit of an issue if we want a self-sustaining ecosystem. How are we going to get that smoke in there? One option, and believe it or not, this is not the first time I've considered this. One option is to set fire to the bioretention system. I've considered this as a potential weed management strategy before, but even I am not crazy enough to set fire to a bioretention system without permission. Don't do that. It's silly. But that would be one option. You could, if you were, the local government person who managed a pocket bushland bioretention system, you could set up a controlled burn in one. But that's got its own problems, right? A lot of bioretention systems have the underdrainage flush out points above the soil. You're probably going to melt them off. That's not ideal. So what else do we have? Well, okay, maybe we could collect seed. This is a little bit more labor intensive, not crazy. Collect seed, smoke that in its own accord, and maybe disperse that. But here, Professor Dixon has something else to say.
So it's been about 20 minutes, which is about the optimum period. So we might just open this up and see how it's all gone. And there we go. So you can see the brown coloration on here.
Sure.
And locked in there is the magic chemical.
And so that's now more or less coated the seed.
Yeah, it's like a slow-release fertiliser coating that we've put on there. And then they can be just dried off and then sown any time over the next year or so. So
really? It'll last that long? It won't?
It'll last for many
rub
years.
off?
Yeah. But you've got to water them very carefully, otherwise you can wash the chemical through too quickly.
And that's a little bit of a problem, right? Because bioretention systems are dry, like really dry, the vast majority of the time, and occasionally get really, really wet. It's entirely possible, and again, I'm no expert on this subject to know the exact quantities of water we need here, but it's entirely possible that a bioretention system would either be too dry that the plant would never get enough water to be like, I'm going to germinate now, or either too wet that it washed off the smoky coating that your pre-treated, pre-smoked seed would have on it. There's so many potential questions, potential things to consider here, but the long and the short of it is this. Bioretention systems come in many shapes and sizes. Some of those are completely suited to mimicking natural ecosystems, to putting trees in there, putting understory in there, putting diversity in there, trying to get them to establish into an ecosystem. So you have healthy, diverse soils. You have pioneer species that come up of their own accord. You have succession as those pioneers die and other species come back. You have small animals in there. It's entirely appropriate to design some bioretention systems in this manner. And if we're going to do that, we need to keep delving into these topics of what makes a functioning, healthy bushland ecosystem. And fire is one part of that, but maybe there are others. And as those occur to us, as those appear, as we stumble across them, we will keep bringing them to you on these episodes. And that's it. That is what I want you to consider. How can we create these functional ecosystems? Fire and smoke is a part of it. Succession is a part of it. Healthy soils are a part of it. It is all one functional ecosystem that feeds off itself and needs as little human intervention as possible. And hopefully we can get to a truly low maintenance bioretention system. And on that note, if you know anything more about smoke and Australian native plants, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you have enjoyed this episode, there's a few ways you can find us. You can find us at www.ideanthro.com. You can find us on YouTube, search Ideanthro. You can find us on Facebook, also search Ideanthro. We hope that you have enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.